Hello, hello. Great to have everybody here with us today. We're going to talk about this idea of spiritual materialism. My name is Kelvin Chin, and I'm going to talk about an essay that's in this book that I've written, Marcus Aurelius Updated. It's available online worldwide on all the online booksellers. There's an ebook version and the print version. I suggest that you get the print version because you can do stuff like this. I'll show you. This is what a lot of people do. They dog-ear pages, they highlight stuff, they underline stuff. I think you can do that in some of the ebook versions as well, depending on if you have Kindle or not. But anyway, this is a collection of 67 essays that I've written on all different topics to help people live life more fully and more freely and with more happiness and contentment and less suffering. That's the idea of this book in a nutshell. So we're going to talk about page 190, the essay that starts on page 193 in the print version here. And the essay is called Spiritual Materialism Revisited. There are a couple of essays on spiritual materialism in the book, and I referenced the idea several times in different essays in the book, but this is the one that I want to focus on today. What is this idea of spiritual material, what I call spiritual materialism? Spiritual materialism, the way I define it, is when we use materialistic metrics to measure our degree of spirituality. For example, by using an experience or a set of experiences to measure our spiritual growth. Those experiences could be internal ones or from our external behavior. Could be either way. And you'll see from some of the examples that we're going to talk about today what I mean by that, to illustrate that idea. But that's the ideas. You know, when we use materialistic metrics to measure our degree of spirituality. And some of you who know me or have seen other videos on my YouTube channel, you know I've been involved in spirituality I've been meditating for 52 years now. So, and I've been teaching meditation for 49 years, and I've been in different meditation groups over the years, and I've been to many spiritual workshops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, over the decades. But the thing is, and I've spoken at many, many conferences and so forth, as you've seen the YouTube videos of. What I've noticed is that there is a tendency amongst people, it's true for, I think, anybody, not just spiritually oriented people. I think I think this is part of human nature to some degree, and we'll talk about what I mean by that statement. But especially in spiritual communities, there tends to be a tendency for people to judge where they're at based on their experiences that they're having. And it's understandable. I get it. I'm not criticizing this. I'm saying, number one, it's understandable, but let's talk about this and understand how it fits into the scheme of things, so that maybe if we understand it better, we might have a better perspective about this tendency that people have. I think it's understandable because that's what we're like in our waking state. We need to assess things. We need to prioritize things. We need to say, oh, I want to make this choice and I'm going to do this and I'm going to strategize and I'm going to plan things out and so forth. Those are waking state, very, very much waking state tools and attitudes that we take that are very useful and they're very helpful. But I would maintain that it's a slippery slope when we're talking about our spirituality. Now, what do I mean by spirituality? I'm using spirituality in this way, talking about our internal life, internal. When that's why, I call my meditation technique turning within meditation. So when our eyes are closed, we're turning within. That's what I'm talking about when I think of it more in the spiritual context. Now, we can manifest that internal, how we live our lives internally, externally in our waking state, of course, and that's a manifestation of that. It's an external manifestation. Our behavior, our thinking and our behavior are an external manifestation of our internal. But that's the key point, isn't it? It's an external manifestation of our internal. And so by judging ourselves only by what our external manifestations are, That's the slippery slope, and that's what we need to be we need to be cautious of, right? We need to be cautious of not doing that, because when we do that, what we start to do is get into a comparing. We start to compare ourselves with ourselves, or even maybe worse, are comparing ourselves with others in terms of what experience says that other person may have had, or we have had within ourselves compared to another experience we've had at another time. And we judge ourselves based on that, or we judge others based on that. That's the slippery slope. And I would maintain that it actually is self-limiting. It limits us, because if we only define ourselves based on experiences we have, and we start having experiences that we like, then we start looking for those kinds of experiences in our lives. We start to manipulate our lives to lean more in that direction, and we reduce the possibilities of having other magical experiences in our lives that may happen to us completely out of the blue, because we are limiting ourselves by only preferring X or Y or Z. And what about A, B, C, and X and Q? I mean, not X, but I already said X, but you know what I mean? All the other letters that could happen in the alphabet, not just the X, Y, Z's. You know, how many letters in the alphabet? There's 23 others. Right? English alphabet anyway. I know this is worldwide, and I have students in 55 countries, so I apologize to my students in some of the other countries, but in the English language, you know, 26 letters in the alphabet. We limit ourselves, and that's the thing. And to me, spirituality is about expanding our possibilities, isn't it? I think most people would agree with that. Well, then we have to align our thinking in order to achieve that goal, the goal of being what? Expanding our opportunities, expanding our conscious capacity of human experience, which is the way I would also define spirituality. Well, we need to align our thinking with that, and gravitating and looking for, and I'm looking for that experience, and that experience is better than this experience, and going down that road is a very slippery slope. Some of you may have heard this story that I've told in some of my meditation classes of this woman, Lillian Rosen, who said 12 words to me when I was a new meditator. I'd been meditating for 2.5 years at that time. Lillian had been meditating for 14 years at that time. Oh my God, 14 years. Can you imagine? That's what we would all say. You know, I've only been meditating 2.5 years. Somebody else say, I've been meditating a year. I've been meditating 5 years. I've been meditating 8 years. Oh my God, Lily has been meditating 14 years. Can you imagine? That's what everybody would say. And so everybody, you know, listened when Lillian spoke. And this is in 1973. She said this to me, June 1973. I told her a simple experience that I'd had very often in my meditations, where I would sit and close my eyes in meditation, and I'd be expanded, like feeling connected with all things living and animate and inanimate, just living and non-living things, just connected with everything in the universe. Felt that expanded and felt lit up inside, like bright white light inside with my eyes closed. And my body was as if shut down. Obviously, I was still breathing a little bit, but I'm still alive. Hello, I'm still here. But my body felt as if shut down. And I said this to Lillian, and Lillian said these 12 words to me. And the 12 words include, those of you who've heard me say this, what the first word is Kelvin. But the other 11 words are crucial. Lillian said to me, Kelvin, I think you may be liking that a little too much. Kelvin, I think you may be liking that a little too much. What was Lillian saying to me? Lillian was saying to me, I might have started becoming a little spiritually materialistic there, right? A little materialistic, a little looking for it so much that what happens? I start preferring that. I start looking for it. I start controlling in my meditation. I start manipulating to make it happen. What's that do? Controlling and manipulation in meditation. What does that do? Focusing, controlling the mind, directing the mind. That limits the mind. Those of you who've taken my meditation class, you know that. It limits our mind. It puts our mind right back in the 8-inch plastic bucket part of our mind that you've heard me talk about sometimes in my classes, in the Houston Astrodome analogy, for example. We want to expand our mind, our mental capacity of our mind. We're not expanding our mind. It's still our mind. We're expanding our capacity to experience, waking up more of our mind, you see? And so what Lillian was telling me, careful, don't go looking for that. Then you're going to start making it happen, try to make it happen. Now you're controlling, now you're limiting the mind. That was the whole parenthetical that Lillian said to me. She didn't have to say those words. I had sat in on enough meditation classes at that point to understand that, I see exactly what she means. And so now I've come up with this term. I call it spiritual materialism. And it's understandable. So I'm using myself as a self-disclosure, as an example of me starting to creep down that path a little bit, but I caught myself thanks to Lillian in 1973. Okay. Now, it's not, I'll give you another example because I mentioned, so that's an inner example. Okay, that's an experience in meditation, inward example. Let me give you an external example because I mentioned that in the definition that I cited to you that I've written, that the experiences could be internal ones or from our external behavior too. The materialistic view of spirituality, in other words. And one of the examples I give here on page 194 in the book is these extreme examples of 1500 years ago, Christian ascetics. These are Christian monks. So there's these cults. There were these Christian cults, and there's been Christian cults from, since Christianity exists. There have been cults on planet Earth for millions of years, as long as humans have been on Earth. But there were Christian cults in the Middle East. And these were supposedly the holiest of holy men living up on a 40 to 50 foot pillar. They would find these ancient Greek temples that were in ruins. But, the columns is still sitting there from 40, 50 feet high. Big, huge columns. And they'd climb, put a ladder on the side. This is true. These are true stories. They put a ladder on the side. They'd climb up and they build a 3 foot by 3 foot wooden platform at the top and live up there for 30 years. 20, 30, 40 years, live up there, never, ever getting off the top. And it was that they viewed that as spirituality. That they could give up the rest of the world. And they had disciples, their followers would climb up the ladders it was kind of gross, but anyway, they would climb up the ladders. They'd have to put, there's all these stories. You can look this up. And they'd have to put these herbs and masks on their head so that they could breathe herbs because the smell was so gross at the top where their master was. And that their master, this is their spiritual teacher, living up there for 20, 30, 40 years on this 3 foot by 3 foot platform. Yeah, doesn't matter what the weather is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, never getting down. So, that's an extreme example of external spiritual materialism, thinking that that's what, or look at how many temples there are in Asia now, in 21st century Earth. People just go and they give their incense, and they light the candles, and they burn the incense, and they have to have special, and you have to get buy this special incense from the certain, store at the monk or certain monks. They sell this and they make this and whatever. That's all materialistic view of spirituality. Now, I'm not throwing water on it, saying they shouldn't do it and so forth, but I'm saying, is that the most effective way to expand one's conscious capacity for experience? No, it's turning within. those are all just materialistic. People think of materialism in a financial way, typically. No, materialistic just means what? It means putting a material thing in physical reality in the forefront as opposed to internal. That's all that means. Whether it's financial materialism, like, oh, how many BMWs do you have? Whatever. Oh, I'm a more important person than you are because I have, a better car than you do. A lot of Americans, a lot of people in the world, not just Americans, but a lot of people in the world, unfortunately, it's not just Americans, it's worldwide, think that way. The importance of being important. We talk about that in another essay in the book. But, that's just a form of spiritual materialism, isn't it? That financial materialism, not spiritual materialism, financial materialism, are more important than you are. But it's just silliness. Look, again, I point out in this essay, it does not mean you're not spiritual if you have a whole bunch of cars in your collection. Jay Leno, I don't know Jay, we haven't met yet. He hasn't found me yet, but I don't know him. But let's just say Jay is, I can't assume, and I should not assume, and you should not assume, that Jay is not a spiritually oriented person simply because he has a big car collection. It's not based on that. All right. What is it? I said in the definition, it's when we use materialistic metrics to measure our degree of spirituality. So if we're not measuring our degree of spirituality based on how many cars we have, we can still be a spiritual person and have lots of cars. Or an example I give here of, my friends who has hundreds of pairs of shoes. She has hundreds of pairs of shoes. There's nothing wrong with that. She can be a very spiritual person and have hundreds of pairs of shoes. It's not about getting rid of all your shoes. That's the point. Or getting rid of all your cars. It's about what's going on inside. That's the key. And for those of you who've seen me use this model, if you can see this, it says conscious of XYZ. I talk about this in a number of my essays and lectures and so forth. So I'll just briefly describe it to you. Give my friend Charlie credit for this. Charlie Donahue, one of my meditation mentors in the 1970s, he came up with this. He's a philosophy professor now. You can see why when I explain this to you. He said, this is the description of human experience. Conscious of blank. That line is a blank. Fill it in, X, Y, Z. Why X, Y, Z? Because they change. You're conscious of what Kelvin Chin is saying now. You're conscious of looking at a laptop or a video, whatever. You're conscious of, oh, what did I eat this morning? What we're conscious of changes. It's external, it's internal. But what it changes at different times. They're identifiable. This side of the equation is identifiable and specific. This side of the equation, he said, what about this side? Everybody focuses on this side. Oh, what kind of car do I have? Where do my kids go to school? How much money do I make? That's the financial materialistic way. Or in terms of what we're talking about now, spiritual materialism. Oh, did you have that experience of expansion of consciousness? Did your mind light up and feel full of light? Those are what Lillian's telling me. That's just all XYZ stuff. Don't forget about this, Charlie would say. This is what everybody has forgotten about. The experiencer, consciousness side, the mind is what's necessary in order to have experience of the XYZs, what he would call the objects of experience are experienced by the experiencer. So by remembering that concept and applying that in our lives, we become not a materialistic person, but a truly spiritual person by judging ourselves not by our experiences, but by how much we, and not judging, we stay away from that. But what is important, it's a better way of saying it, what is more important to us in our spirituality and our spiritual growth is, to what degree do I know myself? To what degree have I opened myself up more to who I am? And by doing that more and more over our lifetime, that's how we develop our spirituality in the way I view spirituality. It's that 100 million room castle that some of you have heard me talk about, where our mind is like a 100 million room castle, but most of the lights are turned off in the castle for most people. And they just live, and they live their whole 60, 70, 80, 90, 100-year life living in about, I don't know, half a dozen rooms in the castle, some small number. I'm just picking a random number. But they have all these other rooms that they haven't lit up. What I'm saying is turn within, find a way to turn within regularly, open up the castle to you. It is your castle. You own it. It's your mind. But turn on the light switches on the rest of the rooms, so that this 100 million room castle is accessible to you, not just the half a dozen rooms that you're used to living in most of your life, right? That's the thing. And in terms of, just to finish this idea of spiritual materialism, don't get stuck in any of the rooms, because I'll tie up this whole thing with the Lillian Rosen story. Lillian was basically saying to me in parentheses, Kelvin, don't get stuck in the room full of light. That's a great room. Oh, I love the room. I'm filled with light when I close my eyes. But it's just one of the rooms in the 100 million room castle, right? And she said, don't get stuck in that room where, you feel connected with all beings and inanimate and animate things in the universe. You feel so connected with everything. That's just another one of the rooms. It's just another one of the rooms. What about the other 100 million rooms in the castle? Don't limit yourself. That's what we want to do, is not limit ourselves, so that we continue for eternity to expand our conscious capacity for experience. And in the language of knowing thyself, thereby knowing more and more and more and more about ourselves, little by little, as we go through lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Okay, so I hope that helps. Hope that gives you a different perspective, maybe, on experiences that we may have on our spiritual journey. It's not saying not to enjoy them. Enjoy them. No, yes, enjoy them. Enjoy the experiences. But don't get identified with the experience. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. This is not who you are. You are this. You are the consciousness side. You are your mind. That's what continues after we die. This drops away. All of that stuff drops away. We can still continue to have those on the other side experiences, but we need remember who we are. We are the experiencer of our experiences. All right. So for those of you who have anxiety issues, this is very important to remember and understand also, because you are not your thoughts and emotions. That's a mistake. You're not the XYZs. You are the experiencer of them. Now, we can reduce the influence of those on us, absolutely, okay, which is what I teach in my meditation class. But also from a spirituality standpoint, which is what we're talking about today, it all matches up together, doesn't it? Anxiety and spirituality really are all connected, because we are one being. And if we are anxious, we can get rid of our anxiety, and we can expand our conscious capacity experience. It's all a continuum, is my point. All right. Questions, anybody who's in the group right now live with me? Any questions at all? Anything at all? Questions. Anything? Alex, do you want to talk about how the meditation has helped you in this regard? You were sharing text with me earlier.
Yeah, actually, I do have a question as well.
Go ahead.
When you talk about being spiritual, do you mean like in a religious sense, or just in general?
Oh, thank you so much for pointing that out. No. I mean it in a general sense. So for some people, they'll think of spirituality through a religious lens, which is fine. I'm not saying not to. I'm saying that and, okay, inclusive. I'm the inclusive guy. I'm not excluding that. So people who may look at it through their religious beliefs and religious lens, that's fine. Other people look at through it through a more general lens, so let's just call it, just who they are as an individual. And then even the religious people who are very religiously oriented in a religious institution in the world, through one of the many religious institutions in the world, can also look at it more generally as well. So it's all of any of those or combinations of those is what I mean. Does that help?
Okay, yeah, thank you. And yeah, so the meditation has really helped me. Honestly, I'm able to focus a lot more easily during the day, and I'm able to make rational decisions like compared to before. And actually, even my family noticed the other day, my mom was telling me, like, wow, you changed so much, you know. So I'm very happy about that. And it's, yeah, what we were talking about yesterday is I mentioned to you that I was like almost like addicted to meditation, but I guess addicted is not the right word. But for me, it's become as important as sleeping. You know, it's become like a, if I don't do it, then I feel really strange, you know. So it's become a very important aspect of my life, and it's definitely helped me a lot. Like it's and even we were talking about dreams earlier. Um, Before, I used to not be able to remember my dreams. It's like I didn't even dream, and now I remember every single detail, and I can recall my dreams so clearly, and they're all so vivid. Like they're like almost like movies, you know. So I think that's a lot of releasing probably that's being done.
It's releasing that's going on, but the clarity is because you are infusing, you're more familiar with this side of your mind. Your mind, it's your mind experiencing itself is what's going on during meditation. And what's happening is because your mind is more familiar with this side of its, which is its essential side, really, right? Of the equation, your mind is more familiar with itself, you could say, your dreams are more clear. That's why. That's why the clarity is there. And so, and that's why you'll be able to make more clear and better decisions, as you described, in your waking state, because our mind is more clear. It's less cluttered with this stuff on this side. We have these thoughts, obviously, and it's important to have thoughts. I'm having thoughts right now with you guys right now, but the meditation helps us develop a spontaneous, it's not a mental act, it's a spontaneous knowingness of who we are. That's the thing. And who we are is our mind, and our mind is the experiencer of everything else. So that's a beautiful way of describing it, Alex. Thank you for sharing that with us and with me and everybody here. But yeah, it's not an addiction. It just like you and I were talking about yesterday. I mean, if you call sleeping an addiction, yeah, it's an addiction. You know, you feel like, well, I got to sleep. But in the same sense, you know, I got to meditate. But what you notice is that, so because you've been meditating, what has it been? A month or two now, right? So something like that. And the thing
Yeah,
is,
about a month and a half.
about a month and a half, yeah. So a month or two now. And so what you will notice over the years, as you continue doing this practice that I've taught you, is that there'll be less and less contrast. And so if you did miss a meditation every once in a while, you wouldn't notice, oh, like you feel like, oh, I really needed to do that. You'll still feel the need to do it, but the contrast won't be as great. That's the thing. Why? Because as we talked about in another one of our classes together in the meditation class, the effects tend to last throughout the day, 24/7, the more years you do it, the more months and years you do it, right? So there's less contrast, even if you did miss it. But this opening up, thank you for sharing that, Alex, opening up of the mind to itself is what you're experiencing in this way that how I'm defining spirituality of expanding our conscious capacity of our mind. Because really, even for the folks who go to church every day, or go to temple, or go to the, the mosque every day, whichever religion you're talking about. And if I've left any out, there, I apologize, but include yourself in that. It doesn't matter. Why do people go? Because they want to be more connected, in their case, with God, Allah, Shiva, Krishna, whatever religious order you're talking about. It's more of a connection. Well, how can you get more connected? You get more connected by expanding your conscious capacity for experience. That's, and then I have other students who just want to connect with their loved ones on the other side, dead loved ones. Well, how best to do that? By increasing the probability of that by expanding your conscious capacity in this way that I am defining spirituality. But again, being cautious and aware to not fall into this materialism trap that we talked about earlier. Anything else? Any other comments or questions from other folks who are live here? Anything? Yeah.
Yes, Kevin, that what the other person make the question, so was for me like is, we have like the, I found a book was the self-care, and the self-care also include spiritual self-care, which is will depend on your spiritual beliefs, but might include meditation, go to church or pray, like you say,
Sure.
Meditation is one spiritual, like spiritual, because it's a connection with yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So I think what you were talking about self-care, I think, and then it could include meditation or prayer. Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
This is spiritual self-care, which is now added even in psychology, because like I said before, some people use still a lot of medication, but they are seeing the medication is only little bit they help you at the moment, but it's not cure. We need to get tools.
Yes. Good, very good point, Mari Cruz. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, she was saying the idea of spiritual self-care includes meditation and prayer, and it's not just medication, because that can help people, because that doesn't, it's very limited, and it doesn't provide a cure to some of these ills that people have just by taking a pharmaceutical medication approach. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's right. And prayer is all part of this. So turning within, to me, prayer is obviously turning within. So it's another form. You could call it meditation. You don't have to call prayer meditation, but I've taught Buddhist monks to meditate. They're already doing their Buddhist meditation. I've taught them my meditation technique. I've taught Catholic priests, nuns, rabbis, imams, you name it. It just, leaders in the Sikh religion and so forth. It's just all different religions. It doesn't matter. Protestant ministers, etc. Many chaplains and so forth. I've taught them meditation, and they're still doing their religious practices. There's no conflict. So yes, spirituality in the broadest sense is the way I embrace the idea of spirituality. So yeah, but in any case, this idea of spiritual materialism that we're talking about applies in all of those different venues as well. And again, I'm not saying to not light the candle. I'm not saying don't burn incense. I'm saying that alone is what I'm saying. That alone does not measure your spirituality. That's what I'm saying. Okay? So anything else? Thank you so much for people's comments. It was great. Alex and Mary Cruz, thank you so much. And everybody for being here. And for those of you who are watching this video, if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, feel free. If this resonates, and I post videos here regularly. And also, if you want to reach me, you can just reach out to me at kelvinchin.org on the contact page on my website. Just my name spelled out, kelvinchin.org. That's one of my nonprofit websites, and you can reach me via the contact page there. Thank you so much, and everybody be well. We'll see you again soon. Take care.